There is a stone tablet sitting in the basement storage of the Cairo Museum. Most people walk right past it. It has a catalog number, CG 258, and it was discovered in 1858 by French archaeologist Auguste Mariette, buried beneath the sand near the eastern face of the Great Sphinx. Mariette cleaned it, photographed it, and filed it away. For nearly a century, it sat in relative obscurity. Most scholars who encountered it assumed it was routine. Just another votive inscription from the reign of Khufu, the pharaoh credited with building the Great Pyramid. But hidden inside it is something that shouldn't exist. The text on what is now called the Inventory Stele describes Khufu ordering restoration work on the Sphinx. Not construction. Restoration. The monument is treated in the inscription as something Khufu discovered. Already standing, already weathered, already carrying a name that predates his dynasty entirely. If the inscription is accurate, Khufu didn't build it. He found it. Already ancient. Already deteriorating. Already belonging to a civilization whose name he did not record, because perhaps he didn't know it either. For decades, scholars dismissed it as symbolic, a piece of political theater, a later text composed in an archaic style to legitimize a dynasty. But that explanation has a problem. Linguistic analysis places the stele's composition within 50 years of Khufu's actual reign, and it describes structural repairs to a monument so old its origins were already lost to living memory. Here's where it gets strange. If this investigation is pulling you in, hit subscribe. We follow the evidence wherever it leads, including places mainstream archaeology refuses to go. In 1991, a Boston University geologist named Robert Schoch physically examined the erosion patterns on the walls of the Sphinx enclosure. Not the statue, but the pit carved into the Giza bedrock to create it. What he found was not the shallow horizontal scarring caused by windblown sand. It was deep, vertical channels, grooves that form only from sustained, heavy rainfall, cutting downward into exposed limestone over centuries. That pattern does not occur in a desert. The last time the Giza Plateau received that volume of rainfall was before 5000 BC. Conservative estimates place it at 7,000 years ago. The geological upper range pushes closer to 10,500 BC. Not a myth, not a metaphor, a timestamp carved into the bedrock by weather that hasn't existed at that site in thousands of years. Then the seismic readings came back. In that same 1991 survey, Schoch and engineer Thomas Dobecki ran acoustic mapping across the floor of the enclosure. The instruments returned anomalies, rectangular voids beneath the front paws and along the southern wall. Not natural cavities, not air pockets from sediment collapse. The geometry was too regular, too deliberate. Chambers, possibly rooms, possibly something older than the Sphinx itself. The Egyptian Antiquities Authority denied further drilling. The peer-reviewed data was published. The follow-up expedition was quietly refused access. The report was not debunked. It was ignored. There is a difference. Now consider what was inscribed on the inner walls of the Ptolemaic temple at Edfu, 600 miles south of Giza. The Edfu building texts describe a civilization called the Shebtiw, a group of divine builders who survived a catastrophic inundation and established the sacred sites of Egypt in an age they called Zep Tepi. The first time, mainstream Egyptology reads this as cosmological allegory, the mythological origin story of the gods. But that explanation has a problem. The Edfu texts do not describe gods performing miracles. They describe architects surveying terrain, engineers placing foundation deposits, surveyors recording elevation and celestial alignment with precision. They weren't guessing. They were recording. 3 elements in the Edfu corpus have never been adequately explained by the symbolic reading. First, the texts describe the original sacred mound as emerging from receding water, surveyed after a flood, not created by divine will. Second, The builders are described as carrying something the texts call the writings of Thoth, a corpus of technical knowledge that explicitly predated Egyptian civilization and was preserved through the catastrophe. Third, and most precisely, the builders are said to have come from an island consumed by the sea. Not a heavenly realm, not a metaphorical abyss, an island. That sank. That distinction matters. Now, does this prove the most extreme version of the story? Probably not. But that doesn't make the discovery ordinary. What it does suggest is something more precise and more uncomfortable for conventional chronology: that the oldest sacred sites of Egypt were not invented by the first dynasty. They were inherited, placed on foundations laid by a culture whose name we do not know, whose primary texts we cannot locate, and whose homeland no longer exists above the waterline. Then, modern science found something that changed everything. A 2017 genomic study published in Nature analyzed ancient Egyptian DNA extracted from mummies spanning 1300 BC to 400 AD. The oldest genomes showed significant ancestry from a population that could not be matched to modern sub-Saharan Africa or the Arabian Peninsula. They clustered with ancient Levantine and Anatolian populations. But buried inside the data was a third signal, a component that matched no known living population. A ghost lineage, old enough that its source group has either gone extinct or was never sampled, because it left no surviving descendants. Not similar to known ancient populations, not inspired by them, something distinct, something older. And if that's true, it means our history is missing a chapter. The Inventory Stele is still in the Cairo Museum. The rectangular voids beneath the Sphinx remain unexcavated. The ghost genome in the Egyptian DNA record remains unresolved. Whatever was there, whatever built the platform that Egypt inherited, whatever preserved its records through a catastrophe it described as a flood that reshaped the world, it was sealed, it was mapped, and then it disappeared. The Sphinx still faces east. It has faced east through every dynasty, every empire, every erasure. It was there before the pharaohs. It may have been recording something we haven't learned to read yet. If that question won't let you go, the next video goes deeper. And if this investigation earned it, like and subscribe. This is the kind of history they don't teach in school, and it only reaches people when you help carry it forward.